Am I just leaving without them? Oh. In some ways, this place seems to rather suit Lord Van Zee. Oh dear, did I say that out loud? Oh, Susie.
I love you, Susie.
Alright, let's go talk to
Please be our wife.
Huh? Oh, I can't. You're gay. Wait. What? This is the ward where Mr. Vigil was brought, apparently. To be frank, I'm a little worried about seeing him again. I thought you were Frank. Ah, the lawyer. Hello again. Are you feeling better now, Mr. Vigil? Yes, thank you. Somewhat better. I'm so sorry to have caused you to... I mean, it was because of me. If I hadn't exposed your secret and forced you to remember things you'd obviously tried to forget. The prosecutor was here until a few moments ago, too. You just missed him. Oh, Cosmo beat us to it. He said much the same as you. He was very apologetic. But the truth is, I brought all of this upon myself. Please don't think like that. Keeping it from Evie, my wife, all these years, I've carried such a sense of guilt. But that's not the worst of it. Over time, I obviously came to deceive myself as well. You mean about your dismissal? Looking back now, I'm beginning to think that perhaps Inspector Gregson didn't stumble across me by accident at all. I mean, he compensated me so generously for acting as his stand-in. He was clearly concerned for my well-being and doing what he could to help. So perhaps Gregson knew exactly what had become of Mr. Vigil all along, then. I'm sure this is just desserts for 10 years of lies and deception, but... if it wasn't me that helped the Professor escape 10 years ago, it wasn't me. I swear it. I swear it's true. Oh, Mr. Vigil. I'm sure you'd rather not dredge up even more from your past this time, but... if possible, could you tell us exactly what really happened?
Starts foaming at the mouth.
I want to get all of this off my chest. I just want someone to tell me what I should have done. It's tradition. Mr. Vigil, would you mind casting your eyes over this? I have no thoughts. Woo. Your armband makes me dizzy. Woo. These must be the patient's treatment notes. Let's see. Tendency to jump from windows. Remember to place cushion at base of wall outside. Aren't we a story up from the ground? How do stories in Britain work? Because they skip a floor, right?
Yeah, they skip a floor.
No. Well, I guess the way... No, what he's saying, it works in both Britain and Japan. So they're on the second floor in America, which would be the first floor in Britain. Because they have ground and then they go first. With the first one off the ground. But this is still grammatically correct in either sense. Oh dear, poor Mr. Vigil. I can't help feeling that there's a better solution to the problem than a cushion, though. Finding something you lost isn't always a happy experience, it turns out. Pursuing the truth can be a very dark business sometimes, can't it? Yes, I'm afraid it can. Pay with good cheer, leave with good cheer. Well, look at that. You were spot on, Mr. Sato. It's full of cheer. Okay.
Ask Eliac some questions.
Yeah. I was just making sure I didn't miss anything. Inspector Gregson was obviously engaged in a special operation of some sort. He was investigating something that even Scotland Yard couldn't know about. Details of the Reaper's marks, yes. It was when he had to carry out those investigations that I would take his identification and impersonate him. You'd pretend to be an inspector and carry out investigations on his behalf. Oh no, never. A common street peddler couldn't possibly carry out a proper police investigation. All I would do is go to the specified location and make a little hoo-ha. You'd make a vagina? Just something to leave an impression, like a vagina. So everyone there would think a detective called Gregson was here. So that's what you were doing on the day prior to the incident, making a vagina? In a manner of speaking, yes. He asked me to make an appearance at the park on Lime Street for the Redhead League event. So as usual, I flashed the inspector's identification around and was very vocal about my presence. But then you were taken prisoner by those... But then you were taken prisoner by those red-headed fraudsters! Yes. So you would have always make a point of showing Gregson's identification and generally being loud? That's what the inspector asked me to do, yes?
So was there ever a time where Gregson was just standing around us and just being loud?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. Like, I really hope the game doesn't try to do that, but I also think it would be really funny if it was like, yeah, no, at this point, that was when Vigil was pretending to be him.
Or even if, like, you look in the background and you see Visual, like, clearly in a kind of disguise, but we all...
I don't think the disguise was that good, but... but that's one way of becoming a legendary detective, I suppose. Not a good one, though. And as you know, I suffered this bruising around my neck at their hands. But the following day, they kept their word and released me. Without returning the inspector's identification to you, however. Not that he'll need it ever again. We had arranged to meet in the Fresno Street Room at 5 that day so I could report back to the inspector. But at the agreed time, that's when I heard the gunshot. It was at midnight on June 17th, 10 years ago. There was a time scheduled for the execution. But the professor's execution never actually took place, did it? Oh, that was Ryunosuke. Or rather, the execution itself must have been used to affect the plan of escape. I hardly dare to imagine what a chilling plan it was. Barclay was renowned for being the highest security prison in the country. Everything that went in or out of the place was searched multiple times. Every orifice. There was one notable exception. Or rather, one notable loophole. Something that was never questioned. The butthole? I have a feeling I know what that loophole was now. The coffins into which the bodies of the executed convicts were placed, correct? Yes. Once the coroner had confirmed the death of a condemned victim, the body was taken in its coffin for immediate burial in Lowgate Cemetery just behind the prison. The chief warder first had to sign the necessary papers. And after that, no member of staff was permitted to touch the coffin containing the body again. When executions took place, only the executioner and the coroner were permitted inside the chamber. I would wait in the adjacent room for word that the condemned convict was dead. On that occasion, once I had that confirmation, I went into the mortuary to find a lone coffin as usual. The procedure was that I would sign the paperwork and having checked the coffin and then nail it shut. But for some reason that day, the coffin was already nailed shut. No! I didn't think anything of it at the time. I assumed that my deputy must have checked the coffin and nailed it shut before I arrived. So you mean the coffin contained... Yes, I can only imagine that Asoki, having escaped his execution somehow, was alive inside the coffin. The coffin was then taken out through the main gates and deposited in the Lowgate Cemetery. Presumably there wouldn't have been enough air inside to breathe for long. So in the early hours following the burial, somebody dug up the coffin again to set Genshin free. But in the end, he was fatally shot in the graveyard anyway. What on earth really happened in Lowgate Cemetery that night, I wonder? I'm afraid I really don't know. All I can say with certainty are two things. My face feels funny. Asogi couldn't possibly have escaped that way without help from someone working in the prison. And that somebody helped him. That somebody was not me. Obviously you knew the man then. The professor, I mean. Genshin Asogi? Yes, I remember him well, in fact. Would you mind telling us what you know? I would mind. I won't tell you. Having been condemned to death as he was, any contact I had with the man was short, obviously. After the trial, which was carried out behind closed doors, attended only by elite members of the judiciary, they called for his execution to be carried out at the earliest possible opportunity. The outcome of the trial was set from the beginning, wasn't it? It was a time of delicate diplomacy when Britain and Japan were in the process of signing an important treaty. That meant that this potentially destabilizing case had to be dealt with swiftly and discreetly. The man had less of a week in total. As I was the chief warder, I oversaw his short stay in the cells until his final hour. I remember being struck deeply by his noble character and incredible resilience. What do you mean exactly? He was a killer of many men, but he was always quiet and polite. He was a gentleman and a man of intellect. In fact, I couldn't bring myself to believe what he'd done, so I asked him one day. Those 5 members of the aristocracy, whose lives were taken, were you really responsible? I'm guilty of the unforgivable crime of ending another human's life, yes. The following day, the closed trial took place, and the verdict was no surprise. Guilty. And that night, when he was brought back to his cell, I saw something. Something unusual. Something unusual? What? Just fucking spit it out. The last will and testament. of Genshin Asogi. Well, what'd it say, man? As I said, it was in the night following his trial, after he'd been found guilty. I was doing the rounds of the cells, and when I looked into Asogi's, I noticed that he seemed to have a sheet of paper in his hand. Oh, his last will and testament, then, presumably. As soon as he noticed me, he hurriedly shoved it behind his back. But why did you find that so unusual? Isn't it normal for a man to pen a will when he knows his death is nigh? Yes, that's true. But there were special conditions to Asogi's incarceration, you see. What sort of conditions? Well, even though he was held in a cell designed for condemned inmates, he was allowed to keep his personal effects with him, with one exception. Really? He was allowed his things? That is unusual, certainly. Of course, he'd been convicted of killing 5 members of the aristocracy, but at the same time, he was a guest in our country from the Empire of Japan. The powers that be were determined that his final days shouldn't be needlessly uncomfortable. And what was the exception you mentioned? To the personal effects he was allowed? That's the point. He wasn't permitted to have writing materials. Specifically, no pens or paper. So, he was prevented from leaving any written record of what had happened to him? Yes, that was the long and short of it. I have no idea where he obtained that paper. And being the good prison guard I was, I decided to ignore it and move on. Any writing materials would have been confiscated from him upon his incarceration. As I said, he hid the paper behind his back and then he pleaded with me. What did you just hide behind your back? Please turn a blind eye. This is my lifeline. But you know it's against the rules. You're the only person who's seen, if you just agree to keep quiet. Okay. What's on that paper? A last will and testament. This will is the only weapon I have left now. How can a will be a weapon? So I just decided to pretend I'd seen nothing, and I let him keep his will. But then later, it just seemed to vanish without trace. What do you mean it vanished? It would seem that this isn't the end of the story of this mysterious will. I was the only person who saw Asogi's will, but somehow it disappeared. It was after Asogi's execution, which was actually an elaborate jailbreak. The warders gathered up Asogi's possessions that were in his cell. They were all to be sent back to his family home in Japan, you see. To poor Kazuma-sama. And you're saying that it wasn't anywhere to be found among his personal effects? The will, I mean. That's right. I didn't search through them myself. But Governor Caden was livid. He was screaming, can I have disappeared completely? That doesn't quite make sense, though, does it? In what way? Well, we'd understood that only Mr. Vigil was aware of the will's existence. In which case, how did the prison governor know to look for it? Oh yes, you're right. I really don't know how he knew. But it certainly seemed as though he knew of the will's existence from the outset. Only he didn't refer to it as a will. What he said was, money. The Asogi papers. The Asogi papers? Oh shit, I think I know where they're at.
And the sword?
Nope. I really can't tell you anything of the subsequent events.
Is it in Iris's manuscript?
That's what I'm thinking. Because, well,
It
What
was
happened?
Holmes. Holmes helped him.
Sholmes was like, I'm just gonna hide it in this book here and tell Iris never to publish it. That'll work great.
Because, well, what happened?
Your dismissal.
I thought it was gonna be in the sword that we've always been carrying. That way, like, we can go like, wait a second, we got this sword.
No, Cosmo.
Oh, that's right. He
It
took
was
it back.
it was Cosmo's sword, and first of all, it was Cosmo's sword. Second of all,
Yeah, but didn't he get the sword from his dad?
well, yes, but second of all, we've seen him unsheath it. Like he pointedly uses it against.
No, I mean like, some swords you can actually like.
I highly doubt they would have been made that complicated.
I'd forgotten all
Well,
this
now
until
I'm
today.
gonna say it is that, just to spite you.
You know what? Fine. If I'm right, you have to give me a kiss. If you're right, I'll give you a kiss.
I've forgotten it all.
On both lips.
Oh, that's not fair. I only have one set of lips.
I don't suppose it's relevant to
But
the,
it's
the
okay.
case, though.
I kiss both tips, the tip of your nose,
There you go. That's naughty.
Well, anyway, thank you very much for sharing it with us, Mr. Vigil. We're very grateful. I'm afraid there's really little more I can tell you. My wife Evie will be here shortly, so I do hope I don't appear rude, but... Oh no,
Fuck out.
not at all. Please, thank you again. But what will become of you now? I will disappear into the wind, wandering forever the rest of my days. Oh, well, impersonating a police officer is a criminal offense, of course. I imagine that once I'm fully recovered, I shall be arrested. That is why I shall never recover.
And he jumps out the window. Oh, shit! Shit!
Don't be, please. This was all of my own doing. I always knew that this day would come.
Well, I wish you well. Goodbye, Mr. Vigil.
Ah! Before you go, there's just one thing.
Yeah? What is it? You don't need to scream. I'm right here.
Take care of my wife and children.
The Asogi papers.
Yeah?
I'd be grateful if you'd make no mention of the things I told you about them.
Wait.
I'd be very grateful if you'd make no mention of the things I told you about them.
Oh, okay. Presumably for some good reason?
Nope. It's my understanding that their very existence is a closely guarded secret. If it became known that I'd remembered, well, it could be rather troublesome, I think.
I understand.
So now we'll have to bring it up.
Yeah, obviously. Some sort of will that Genshin Asogi penned just before his death, which the man himself claimed was his last weapon. I wonder, perhaps it had something to do with his plan to escape. If there's anyone who might know more about a document that Cosmo's father left behind, it would be Iris. Or it would be Mr. Vigil's governor, of course. Yeah, obviously.
Then we know precisely where we must go. Back to Barclay Prison. I'll just be sitting here, longingly looking out the window.
For your wife to come?
No, for the sweet escape of death.
Alright, well, I'm out of here. They keep adding shit. Okay, so we gotta go to the governor's office now. I think that's what I'll do. It's the only other place we have to go is Lord Chief Justice office, and I don't know why we need to go there, and I don't want to.